Hello again, Internet, and welcome to nobody's favorite low effort content. Today we're going to be reviewing Hungary, the faction in Gates of Hell Ostfront, and you can access this faction through the Valor mod. If you want more info on this mod, please see the first video in the series on Italy. But basically, this is a mod for the base game that allows you to play a good number of extra factions that were not available in the original game. So let's get right into it. Hungary. I quite enjoy playing Hungary. I think they're a challenging but can be quite powerful faction if you play them well. But they're certainly not they're not as hard hitting as say Germany or the Soviet Union by any means, or a lot of the Allied nations. But they do have some great pieces of kit available to them. So once again, we're going to be reviewing them. If you want to see more of this, please see the other videos in this series. Italy at this point, though more to follow. I'm not going to be offering any examples of play, things like that. There's a lot of people out there who have a much better playing style that would be better for YouTube. I just want to sort of give a bit of an introduction to the faction, give my thoughts on sort of how to best utilize it, and really show you what can be gained through this mod. So starting out, infantry. So Hungarian light infantry, once again, this is a mod, so it's not necessarily as detailed as the original game. However, the models are really quite fantastic. There's a decent amount of repetition in them, but they look very good. They are reasonably accurate, and there's a little warping here and there, but whatever. They are armed with the FEG 35M, which is a unique weapon to Hungary. It's a bolt-action rifle. It's about the same as German Mauser, Soviet Nagant. There's nothing really that special about it. I found it had a good round, had good stopping power, quite effective in the game, but wasn't really as overpowered as, say, the US M1 Garand, or even the British Enfield. Actually, I find is quite an effective weapon in this. Anyway, so basic light infantry squad. You have a unit of riflemen with some submachine gun infantry, two of them. In this case, they do have a unique weapon, the Danuvia submachine gun, which is unique to Hungary as well, and there's two of them in the unit. Relatively light infantry, basic, not much to write home about, but a good starting unit for you. AT riflemen. I like how he's just shoulder firing that. You'll die if you do that. Good against light armor vehicles, good against some of the things in the early game, but you're going to want to replace this pretty quick. But it is great at fending off armored cars, soft skin vehicles, shooting at emplacements, things like that. So it is, it's useful to take early on. In this case, they're using the Solothurn S100. Good anti-tank rifle. I'd say it's better than some of the others. Better certainly than whatever the German one is. Certainly better than the Polish or the Commonwealth boys. But it's fine. Replace it quick, but good early on. Medic. Yep. It's a medic. Note they do actually have rifles. I know some of the factions are just equipped with pistols, so that's a nice little bonus. Regular squad here. So again, nothing really too different. Notice their hats have changed. That's interesting. This time they are armed with the Steyr-Mannlicher M1895 rifle. Again, decent, nothing really overly special about it, but it's fine. They do have a unique machine gun, the MG13. I believe some of the German units have this, maybe. I can't remember which ones, but it's useful. So it's nice that now you do have a unit that has a fair bit more firepower. That light machine gun really does make a difference. They also do have, I believe, two submachine gun equipped men, so that's good. Um, Fairly standard squad. A recommendation for really any player, but especially when you're playing the minor factions, is make sure you are capturing enemy equipment. Make sure you are uh, looting the bodies, taking especially anti-tank grenades and medical supplies. Those are going to be quite critical, especially in a lot of the non-elite units that do lack anti-tank capability. Moving on, commandos, more elite infantry. To be honest, I did end up using these guys. Their points value is quite high, so I never really spent too much time with them, but they are good. There's a decent amount of semi-automatic rifles, the ZH-29, which is good, adds a nice little bit extra firepower. One light machine gun. Otherwise, not overly special. They do have some extra grenades, extra pieces of equipment, so they are certainly better. But if it's worth the points, I don't know. Maybe just get your base units more experienced. Assault squad. Yeah, again, elite infantry. They have more submachine guns this time, more grenades, more equipment like that. Not that special really, but if it is something your play style would work well with, definitely go for it. I'm not a very infantry focused. I'm more artillery, and the infantry kind of just I use almost in a support role. That's just me. St. Laszlo Division. I apologize to any Hungarian viewers out there. It won't get better from here. So airborne infantry, so elite, pretty good. I haven't actually fielded this unit. I just never spent the points on it, but again, a good elite unit is never a bad thing. But is it worth the points? I usually don't spend the research points on infantry. Kind of once I get to regular, a slightly better unit, I find it's kind of a waste of time, but that's okay, to each its own, and certainly worth a try. Motorized assault squad. I did use these guys. They're excellent infantry. They do have a good mix of semi-automatic rifles, light machine guns, so they are good. Just keep in mind, there's going to be two of them essentially in the truck, which does come with another machine gun, which is very useful, but it is a soft skin vehicle, so they are going to be quite vulnerable. So watch out for that, and definitely dig it in if you can, if you're in the defensive. Otherwise, it's a good way to get a machine gun around, but it's you're gonna pay for it in points. I'm not entirely sure. Take it if you wish. Auxiliary detachment, basically just 3 infantry, 1 with a submachine gun. They're good. They're lightly equipped. They come in quite cheap, so it's a good way just to kind of spend those last few points, or early in the game. If you want to build up squads that way without spending the research points, it can work. Usually after the first 1 or 2 rounds, I don't really bother with units like this, if at all. But especially in some of the other factions, which I'll cover in future videos, they actually can be quite useful if you want to play a sort of later war version of that faction. And I'll show you when we get to Poland or France what I mean. But for Hungary, I think it's probably better just to go right for the light infantry or your regular infantry squad, unless you really want to spend those points somewhere else. Light machine gun squad. It's a light machine gun. added onto an auxiliary detachment, and you have a small infantry section. Useful. Otherwise, again, spend those last few points, but I wouldn't bother too much. A light mortar. These, I've had very mixed results. Sometimes I find in the Valor mod, they can be a little glitchy and not actually want to fire. Or they'll kind of fire in very weird ways, or, I don't really know. I don't think they're that useful. Let me know in the comments if you've had any success with these, or if you think they're worth it. They can be reasonable to help break up enemy attacks, especially in defense, but the range is so short that they're not great attacking unless you just use it as another support weapon. Just put it right in with your squad. I usually don't bother. Rifle grenade infantry. He has this Kampf pistol. Amazing modeling. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be trashing you for this free mod. Anyways, I haven't actually used this. I think it's hilarious that they've given them that weapon, the pistol grenade launcher. The Germans did use this, very limited. I don't think any other faction has access to it. To be honest, I never bothered with it. I don't find rifle grenades are terribly useful in this game, but that's just me. I wouldn't bother with it, but it's something you certainly need to research to get to better anti-tank weapons, such as the Panzerschreck. This is going to be very useful, especially in that mid or late game, when you start to face off against heavier, particular Soviet tanks, so the T-34 and above, and I'll get to that later, why some of those can be quite challenging for Hungary, much like Italy. So this will provide you with a lot more anti-tank capability. You're going to have to get close, but it's very, very effective, and it's great because you can get it anywhere. You don't have to really set it up, so definitely worth it. I did take these and they did save me quite a lot. Sometimes they were the only thing that was able to actually take out some of the heavier Soviet tanks sort of mid-game before I was able to get better weapons. So definitely worth it. Combat engineer, anti-personnel mines, worth taking sometimes, if you're gonna play it quite defensively. Never take these in an attacking battle, only take them defensively, but they're good. They're good at dealing with choke points, areas where your enemy's going to be advancing through. And then once they've used up all their mines, just dig them in, put them in a trench somewhere, not right at the front, your most vulnerable position, and they'll function as reasonably okay infantry. Combat engineer, kind of the same thing, but for tanks. I usually take the AT mine engineers over the anti-personnel mines, put them kind of further back where you believe that the enemy is going to spawn. It really, really can hold up their advance quite a lot. Actually, it's surprising what I've been able to do with these. Sometimes it'll be completely waste and they'll just drive somewhere else. But never discount anti-tank mines. And then again, once they've used up their supply, they're cheap, okay infantry. Combat engineers, definitely worth taking. Barbed wire, anti-tank obstacles, absolutely critical, especially for Hungary, where you really do need to focus and concentrate your anti-tank resources. So use these to create those choke points, and use these to definitely shape the battlefield to something a little bit more manageable for you. Try to funnel them into where you have your anti-tank weapons, keep them away from more vulnerable positions. But I think most importantly, you're able to dig in. One of the biggest game changers is if you can dig units into trenches, dig tanks into their fortifications, you'll be a lot better off, and you can really really get a good cover advantage. It's a great force multiplier. over the enemy. So definitely take them, and then they're great at just holding those sort of secondary positions, and repairing enemy vehicles is another thing that I like to use all engineers for. Repair them, capture them, basically by putting a soldier into it, and then it'll stay with you when you exit the battle. Sell it off. It's a fantastic way to raise resources in conquest battles, and I think really if you're not doing it, you should. If not just to sell them, get the resources, but also a lot of times it may be better than what you have, so don't discount using enemy equipment. Flamethrower infantry. I don't like flamethrowers. I think they're more of a liability. They do have a limited anti-tank capability, but I've never really been terribly successful with flamethrowers. No tank on him. That's not sure where he's keeping it. Where are you keeping it? Where are you keeping it? Don't bother, but I don't know. Do you? Tank crew, very useful, especially if you're losing tank crew to enemy anti-tank weapons, which a lot of Hungary's tanks are reasonably thinly armored, so it may be useful, unfortunately. But I think more useful is to capture and crew enemy tanks and weapons. They're also really good at repairing as well. So especially early on, if you can capture an armored car, something like that, you can really get some good assets for your force for not much effort, and certainly recrew your tanks and replace casualties. So, reasonably useful. Sniper, I usually like to actually just put them right in with the squads and just give them that extra bit of firepower. It does really help. Sometimes send them ahead a little bit, and they'll be able to just sort of thin out your enemy. Otherwise, to be honest, I think they're a little bit overrated. Unless of course the enemy's using them, in which case you need to kill them as soon as possible. I do like the Hungarian camo smocks that they have. It's a great touch. Looks fantastic, in my opinion. Officer, good for spotting, good with the binoculars. Love the camo smock over his tunic. That's a great look. Great that they modeled that. Otherwise, really good for sort of spotting. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Infantry supply crate. Just to note, like a lot of other minor factions in the Valor mod, this will only re-equip small arms. So your infantry squads, essentially, you can't re-equip tanks, can't re-equip artillery with this. So be wary of that, though it's fantastic just to kind of help you when your infantry start running out of ammo, which inevitably they will do. Another good thing is resupply your infantry and tanks as much as you can after a battle's done before you exit. It just saves you having to resupply them manually afterwards, and I believe it's actually cheaper in terms of resources and resupply points. So yeah, good to take, but limited. Get a truck if you can. 8mm Schwarzlos machine gun. So this is interesting. A First World War Austro-Hungarian machine gun. These were still in use by quite a lot of nations in the Second World War. I know the Germans used them quite extensively. The Hungarians, obviously. Yeah, it's a machine gun. Nothing special. Yep. Moving on. Same thing on a tripod mount. Fun how it's got this one has the flash hider, and this one doesn't. Does have the anti-aircraft sight. Yeah, you're going to be more exposed this way, but you are going to be able to shoot at aircraft, which is useful every once in a while. I've never really taken them. I find that this caliber is not effective against aircraft in most cases. Um, but maybe you can dig it in better. I don't know. Tell me if you like it. 20 millimeter Solitherm anti-tank rifle. Uh, Interestingly, I believe this is the same as the anti-tank rifle team is carrying. 13 millimeters at 100 meters, so able to deal with very light armor. 20 millimeters at 50 meters, which is not bad actually for early in the game. But go here. Where's the is it glitching out? I'm just not giving it. Oh, penetration. 13 millimeters. Yeah, so yeah, same weapon. I'm not really sure what happened there. That's interesting. Maybe that's a little glitch in the mod, or just an oversight on the developer. Whatever. 4 centimeter light anti-tank gun. Yeah, I believe this is actually the same as the Soviet one. 63 millimeters of penetration is actually quite a lot, so this is going to be a very effective anti-tank gun. It has a small HE round, but certainly worth taking, especially early on. And Hungary really does need to rely on a lot of those towed anti-tank weapons, a lot more than other factions, because their tanks do have sort of lower velocity cannons, which are quite effective against the infantry, quite effective against most things, but you can feel a little bit undergunned against enemy tanks. So, worth tanking. 44M booze. I'm not going to try that. If you're Hungarian, please forgive me and tell me how to pronounce it. I'd be curious. I believe it means mace thrower. I'm not sure about that actually. I read that somewhere. So my understanding is these were essentially built on captured Maxim machine gun carriages that the Soviets were using, and they basically put a anti-tank rocket on it, and they were used sort of very, very late in the war, especially during the siege of Budapest. They have a side shield. Actually, the operator would sit sort of over here and operate it that way, and this is basically to shield them from that back blast. So you have 300 millimeters of penetration just across the board. This is an incredibly effective weapon if it can hit. I haven't really used it that much, but I'd be very curious to see. This could be quite good. My understanding is that they were a very effective anti-tank weapon, though a little bit sort of haphazard, maybe not fully developed, but certainly worth it, and definitely great for taking out enemy tanks. So give it a try. Bofors anti-aircraft gun. This is quite good actually against armor as well. You get 51 millimeters penetration at 100 meters, so that's actually pretty good. You'll be able to take out reasonable amount of Soviet tanks. Some of the early T-34s might be a problem for you, but certainly anything less than that. T-35, the BT tanks, certainly anything less than that. They're good against infantry. They have reasonable range, and obviously if you're being attacked by aircraft, then it's fantastic. Wouldn't rely on it as your anti-tank weapon, but certainly a good multi-purpose platform. 5 centimeter anti-tank gun. So this is the German 50 millimeter anti-tank gun. These were given to the Hungarians to basically help them take out Soviet tanks, give them a bit more of an anti-tank capability that they were lacking. So Definitely a good anti-tank weapon. 79 millimeters of penetration at 100 meters, so worth taking. I've had pretty good success with these. They do struggle with some of the heavier Soviet tanks, but it's certainly better than nothing. So recommended. I find with Hungary, I am using towed anti-tank weapons a lot more. 75 millimeter. So this is actually the captured French 75 millimeter field gun that they've mounted on a basically an anti-tank gun chassis, and the muzzle brake to it, and it's firing heat rounds, so 82 millimeters at 100 meters. Quite a potent anti-tank weapon. Definitely worth taking. Once again supplied as a military aid to Hungary from Germany. Not quite sure if military aid is the correct word. I believe they were purchased, but it was through the sort of Axis alliance that Hungary did obtain them. So definitely worth taking if you're feeling a little undergunned. 75 millimeter pack gun, 133 millimeters at 100 meters, so quite a potent anti-tank gun. Worth taking, certainly. But if you can, try to get into some of the better tanks that can use this. I think by this point, anti-tank guns are great in defense, very poor in offense, so don't be spending too much points on them. If you can, try to get a better tank. They're a lot more versatile, I find. The 8 centimeter Bofors gun, so it looks like the 88. It is a 80 millimeter multi-purpose anti-tank and anti-aircraft gun. Only 2 crew. That's interesting. 99 millimeters at 100 meters, so pretty effective, but certainly not a dedicated anti-tank weapon. But good, certainly good to take. It'll be very effective against aircraft, reasonably effective against armor. Try to dig these in actually to the tank trench, I find is the most effective. Just make sure that you are angling it in a way that you can see over the parapet. So now on to sort of artillery proper. So these are actually quite good weapons. They are fast firing, they're hard hitting, but they are very short in range. And they only have a high explosive round. So you're going to struggle with anything armored, and you do have to get them quite close. That being said, they are effective as a direct fire weapon. Hungry, again, it's one of those challenges that you have to sort of, husband your resources a lot more effectively. And I found, going for that artillery and armor combination was quite effective. These guns, I had to use them quite a lot longer than I would have liked to, but you are constrained in resources. You don't necessarily have everything you want or need. It's a good piece, but you will notice its shortfalls. Mortar, I have mixed results with mortars. It often, I find that they don't hit anything, and they just go through ammo unless it's the enemy mortar, in which case it hits every time. Fine, whatever. I don't recommend it. 10 centimeter artillery piece. This is very effective. I actually didn't bother going past this in the artillery. Once I had this, it was fine. It was a good balance of hitting power and range. Once again, so this is a German supplied weapon, but quite effective, and really did start to change the game for me, I noticed, once I had effective artillery. But again, I use a very artillery focused playing style. Often I find, getting medium artillery is kind of the best balance. Light artillery, sort of, 75 millimeter weapons, 8 millimeter or 80 millimeter weapons. Often they're a little too light when they hit. Heavier, 150 millimeter, too long to reload and too expensive. So I recommend just kind of going for this and working with them. 15 centimeter Feldhaut. It's yep. Moving on. Good. It's fine. Again, heavy artillery takes a lot of experience to get there, and you're often, by the time you get there, you're late enough in the game that you're not going to be able to get the experience on the crew to really make it an effective weapon. So, mixed results, unless you really want to focus on artillery over other types of units. The Nebelwerfer, but it's in Hungarian, so it's different, and I won't try to pronounce it. I've used these as Germany, and I've used them as captured examples. These are quite effective. Just sort of aim at wherever the enemy's buildups are and fire. You're not going to be able to react as much because they take forever to load, and they have minimal numbers of salvos. I think you could fire around 3-ish times before you had to hopefully resupply them with a truck. But they are extremely effective. They're very hard hitting weapons. So, take them. I recommend them. The multi-rocket launchers are quite powerful in this game. 21 centimeter 39M. Same as for the Italians. I've never used it. I honestly think that it's probably just going to take up too many resources to actually get to it. It'll be devastating when it hits. Probably has a lot of range, but again, I don't really recommend spending all the time to actually get to it. All right, moving on to vehicles. So, I guess just to summarize artillery, do try to use artillery effectively as Hungary. It is one of your sort of few assets you can get early on that's really going to be a game changer. The tanks are going to be good, but underpowered until quite late in the game. Though they're quite good rate at the beginning, but we'll get to that. So, basic truck, nothing special. Love the camo, love the model for it. So, yep. Hansa Lloyd, so a half-track carrier. This will be great as a tow. Not good for supplying. Does give you an extra crew member to go and repair things or fight as infantry. Again, love the camo, but where? Mercedes L3000. Yep, it's a truck. Good for moving things around. Good for towing, but honestly, I don't really use these. I think they're far too vulnerable. Fuel truck. So it's not an actual tanker Bowser truck. It's a truck with some fuel drums in the back. So nice little touch. Maybe that's just not wanting to model it, but also maybe just showing that this is not necessarily a nation that has all the resources or all the equipment. I've never really used fuel trucks in this game. Well, I have used them, but I don't think they're really that useful unless you're using some of the late war German super heavy vehicles. I never really run out of fuel, but I don't know. Maybe you do. Krupp KFZ 70. So it's a soft skin truck with a machine gun. It's a good way to get a machine gun around, but you're quite vulnerable. Mercedes L3000 supply. Take supply trucks. A little bit of a hack is get your artillery towed by these and then park the truck near it. You'll be able to fire indefinitely. And then at the end of the game, drive all your trucks over to your tanks, line them up, and just refill everything. Refill your infantry. Will save you a lot of points. Supply trucks are really a game changer if you can use them effectively. Just goes to show military logistics is important. Same truck, but the engineer version. So this will allow you to resupply your engineers. Often I find there's not a lot of time to really dig in at the beginning of the game, so whether or not you can resupply your engineers, not sure. But especially for mine troops, might be useful. I don't really take these, but could be good. The 40M Saba. So, basic armored car. It's got a machine gun in it. I find the Hungarian machine guns are actually very effective. I know I was sort of shit talking the Italian machine guns last game. The Hungarian ones are really quite good. I was a fan of them. It's it's got one of those quite thin armor. Kind of looks like the German SDKZ 221, but it's good. It's closed top. You do have the radio. That's nice. I love the camo. I love the skin for it, but it's fine. Good early on, but it'll be too vulnerable. The next one, the 39M with the 20mm Solitherm. So it's basically just an anti-tank rifle in there and a coaxial machine gun. That anti-tank rifle is actually surprisingly good against infantry, I found. It's okay against tanks, but it does have more than the infantry carried one, I've noticed for some reason, but it's surprisingly good. It's kind of like an autocannon, but with a very, very limited mag capacity, so quite good early on. Though I'd recommend going for the Toldi, which essentially is the same thing but in tank form. Very thin armor. Command version comes with an officer. Yep. SDK I've said 7, so a heavy tow, good for transporting infantry if that's something you want. In defensive, it's good to sort of be able to get your infantry to your position quickly. Otherwise, it's a tow, but not good for much other than that. Now we're into tanks. Totally one. Like I was saying, so this is essentially the same weapons as on the armored car. Actually surprisingly good. They're very fast, good traverse, quite good early in the game. They're going to suffer against enemy armor, though if you can get a few of them ganging up on an enemy tank, they'll be quite effective. But they're very good against infantry. Like I said, the Hungarian machine guns are very effective, and the main gun, the Solitherm, is good. It's good. Toldi 2, basically the same thing, little thicker armor with a 40mm gun. So actually quite a potent gun for early on in the game. But you're still quite vulnerable. But worth taking. It's good. I certainly think it does match up to a lot of the early Soviet tanks. Probably not too far off some of the Panzer IIIs maybe, T-26s, things like that. So certainly worth it. The Panzer 38T, so good, reasonable-ish armor for early on. Has some good weapons. 37mm 38T anti-tank gun, so 41mm penetration, quite effective, good, thin armor, but yeah, it's good. Don't stick with it too long, try to move on. Toldi 2, so this is interesting. This is a Hungarian design medium tank. It's quite good. It has the great sort of machine gun, 40mm again, so you're really using quite similar to the early one, so same weapons, but it does have some added on armor. The 40M Nimrod, so basically a Bofors gun on a tank chassis, good for taking out soft skin targets, aircraft, things like that, but you are open top, so it's quite vulnerable and lightly armored, so careful with it. I don't really use these. Turan 1, actually reasonably good tank. Hungarian design again. They were built in reasonable numbers to equip a few units. Hungary did produce a lot of its own equipment, as it did have reasonable industrial capacity, but it does kind of fall short, I think, in a lot of ways. Its armor is good-ish, but the main gun is the same as in the Toldi 2. So not really a huge upgrade, but it is very effective against the infantry with the two machine guns. Otherwise it's not that special really. Turan 2, this time has a 75 millimeter gun with only 50 millimeters of penetration at 100 meters. By this time, you really are sort of midway through most conquest battles. You're going to be facing a lot better enemy vehicles, so it's going to take quite a few of these to sort of gang up on something like a T-34 to be effective. Yeah, they're a little undergunned. They have a decent amount of armor, but you know they're not the best, to be honest. I like it. I really like the look of it. I think it's fantastic that they're in the game, but they are, a little outclassed, to be honest. Panzer III. So this is the long-barreled version with the 5 centimeter anti-tank gun. So quite an effective anti-tank weapon. But it's lightly armored. It does have the add-on. I've used these. They're reasonably effective, but they're certainly better than the Turan 2. I'll just say that. Turan 2 late, so it has the added on cage armor, which is good, but you are still dealing with the same low velocity 75 millimeter gun. Moving on, the Panzer IV F2. Good tank, has a very potent anti-tank gun. I would take this over the towed version if you can focus on tanks over anti-tank guns. If you can, with Hungary, again, I know it's contradicting what I said earlier. You are sort of constrained with your resources, but it's worth taking. The tank, if you can just spend the points on it. Focus on the artillery, maybe good tank. Armor leaving something to be desired, but definitely a good gun. And then a later version of the same tank. Love the camouflage, love the skin on it. Comes in winter, white, and the normal gray-green. Good tank, has some add-on armor. That's good. And then we're getting to the Turan 3. So now we do actually have a 75 millimeter with 138 millimeters of penetration. So this is, getting good. You actually have some reasonable armor now, essentially equivalent to the Panzer IV, kind of. I actually prefer the Hungarian Bauer 3440M machine gun over the MG34s that are in the German tanks. That's just my opinion, though I am right. Good tank, yeah. Able to tank out, most things you'll encounter, but, it's fine. Now, as Hungary, you are able to get the Tiger. In this game, the Tiger's quite effective because you can resupply it with a click. You're not really going that far, so you're not going to run out of fuel. You don't have to drive it, you don't have to operate it, and it's heavy, but it's not invulnerable. The 88 is quite a good gun. I'm not gonna lie, so this is definitely, I would say, the best thing that you can get to as Hungary. It's very effective in this game. And you don't really have to deal with the real life downsides of it. Yay! Definitely get this if you can. It works well. Hungary did receive quite a few of these, well, not quite a few, but a reasonable amount, sort of later on in the war, when Germany was sort of, needing to reinforce a lot of its eastern front. The Romanians were sort of starting to falter. The Bulgarians weren't really participating. Italy had withdrawn mostly at that point. So Hungary really was maybe the most dependable Axis partner at that point. So they did equip them with a lot of their best equipment they did supply to their allies. Germany definitely didn't supply nearly enough to their allies, but this was an example of something that they did do to sort of give some military aid to Hungary. Yeah, good tank. Martyr 2, good tank destroyer. I like how they've given it the Hungarian skin, different color. Once again, yeah, Germany did supply these as military aid, definitely to help deal with those Soviet tanks. Quite effective, you have a good anti-tank gun, and it's mobile, so it's a great way to sort of get it there. Takes this recount over a towed version, but yep, it's fine. Hetzer, good little tank. Love that camo pattern. Sexy. Good. It has very sloped surfaces, so that will definitely help with the armor. You've got the effective 75mm anti-tank gun. Yep, worth taking, I think, if you're going to go down the tank destroyer route. Zrini 134M. Tank destroyer, 75mm gun. You're armored. You're reasonably well armored, actually. Kind of the Hungarian version of the Stug, but unfortunately you are lacking a machine gun, so you're going to be incredibly vulnerable to infantry, and you definitely need to support that with your own infantry. But very low silhouette, you can get behind a lot of things. This is going to be a very effective tank hunter, but it's not it's not perfect without that machine gun. Stormgeist shoots 3, so you have the remote operated machine gun on top, which I would recommend this over the Zrini if you can. Little better armor. Again, love the camo that Hungary's putting on. Fantastic. Good armor penetration. Worth it if you want to go the assault gun or tank destroyer route. And then the Zrini 2, which has 105mm artillery piece, so devastating against fixed positions, soft targets, things like that. But this is more of an assault gun. Still a reasonable amount of armor, but you are lacking that machine gun for the soft targets. So that brings us to the end of Hungary. I think overall Hungary is interesting because it does provide some good pieces of equipment, but you're gonna feel that limitation a lot more. You're gonna feel like you need to make some hard choices in where you're spending your resources, but it's not a faction that you're going to feel completely outclassed all the time. You're going to feel challenged and you're going to feel outgunned, but you're not going to feel beaten with it. So I quite enjoyed my Hungarian playthroughs. It's a fun, sort of challenging faction with some interesting, unique units, and I'm glad that they've represented Hungary, and I'm glad that they've shown a little more of the other nations that fought on the Eastern Front. So that's great that they've included it. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see what faction we cover next time. Have a good day, have a good life, and hope to see you again. Like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. If you like the content, let me know what you'd want to see more of.